Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, here to our today's video podcast session of the Future Blockchain Summit and FinTech Search. For those of you who don't know Future Blockchain Summit or FinTech Search, Future Blockchain Summit is the most important blockchain event in the Middle East. And FinTech Search is the new event for the FinTech industry that's going to accelerate the FinTech movement in the Middle East. And these events will take place from the 17th to the 20th of October this year, 2021, at the Dubai World Trade Center. Today I'm very honored to have Florian Grummes with me from Midas Touch Consulting here in our podcast session. Florian, welcome. Florian, you are an independent analyst, an investor, a trader, and a consultant who is active in the financial markets since 1995. Exactly. I also made my research and I found out that you're also a very creative person. You're a music producer as well, yes, and a songwriter, yes, which is of course very exciting. But today I suggest that we speak about financial markets and investment.
Yes, thanks for having me, Thomas.
Let's start with the topic of inflation. Everyone appears to agree that there is inflation on the horizon. What do you think? And how do you consider inflation for your investment strategy?
I think everyone should consider it into the strategies. Inflation comes from the Latin word inflare, which means blowing up or expanding. And you can make the case that central banks around the planet have been basically creating currency out of thin air since the end of the gold standard in 1971. And they have basically increased that procedure since the corona crash in March 2020. So 1/4 or 1/5 of the circulating dollars right now have been created over the last 12 months. And during the same time frame, you can see that oil prices are up 100%. You can see that lumber prices in some areas are up even 300%. You can see many prices for commodities going through the roof. Copper also up 100%. And I think that you can also make the case that basically since the financial crisis in 2008, many asset classes have seen quite an increase in the pricing. So real estate, for example, stock markets, even collectibles, rare stamps, arts, everything has become more expensive, while at the same time wages, salaries couldn't keep up with that. So you can buy less and less with your monthly wage, for example. And I think inflation is increasing. It's a psychological phenomenon. It's a mass psychological phenomenon. So the more people are afraid of it, the faster they spend their money right now trying to get their hands on hard assets. And this is, it's basically an accelerating process. And I think we are right in that. And I think we're going to see higher inflation numbers over the next few months and probably even the next 1 to 3 years. And you have to consider ways to protect yourself against this. And obviously, precious metals have been always the right way for the last 5,000 years. Now we have a new asset class, which is Bitcoin and crypto, which has basically beating everything else. Bitcoin has outperformed everything else over the last 10 years. And Bitcoin is also outperforming the currency creation. If you look at the balance sheet of the Fed, Bitcoin is the only asset that has outperformed that. And so you need to consider cryptos and Bitcoin in your asset allocation. And you also need to consider generally commodities and commodity-related stocks. And of course also, to a certain extent, stocks that could be in the healthcare sector or in any technology-related sectors.
So you're jumping the gun. We're speaking about potential hedges for the inflation. When we talk about the inflation of fiat currencies, is it like, give our viewers an idea? Is it only the US dollar? Is it also the euro? Is it in all geographies happening? Or are there certain geographies where probably people don't need to be as worried as in the US currently in terms of inflation?
Yeah, I think it's a very important question. because the debasement happens everywhere on the planet. So it's not only the Federal Reserve, it's also not only the European Central Bank, but it's the Canadians, it's the Australians, it's the Brazilians, it's the Indians, it's the Africans, and it's especially the Chinese central bank who's been creating a lot of money out of thin air. And you have this kind of like currency war. Basically, every central bank is trying to lower the value of their currency in comparison to the other currency, but in the end they all go probably sideways against each other. So it's not really of importance anymore. What is the euro doing against the dollar? You don't see a lot of movement, and probably the dollar won't crash against the euro and the euro won't crash against the dollar because they're both devaluating their currency so much.
Now, you already mentioned that the portfolio is very important and it's important to have a hedge against inflation, against fiat currency. You already mentioned cryptocurrencies. And that was my next question. Would cryptocurrency, you're mentioning it's important to have it in the portfolio, but aren't there other risks involved with having cryptocurrencies in the portfolio? There are a lot of people speaking against it. Of course, there are a lot of people supporting purchasing of cryptocurrencies. How do you assess the situation and the risk?
I think the biggest risk is doing something that you don't understand. And the second biggest risk is probably having wrong timing. So now, currently, we are seeing kind of a boom in the crypto sector, and just the last few days, Ethereum shot through the roof, new all-time highs above $3,400. Dogecoin is making new all-time highs.
To the moon.
And people kind of like becoming aware of this boom and this trend. However, they lack the knowledge of understanding the differences because there's so many coins and tokens out there, and unfortunately many of them are scams, and many of them have nothing behind them. Like Dogecoin, it's just a meme coin and it's going through the roof, and maybe it continues. At some point, I'm pretty sure it will be very painful awakening for many investors, but we are not there at the moment, and lacking the knowledge to understand that, I think, is the biggest risk.
Now, you're mentioning already, sorry to interrupt you, but it just came to me, and I wanted to say, wouldn't the risk be a little bit lower rather than investing into a particular coin, going to the stock market, investing into an exchange like Coinbase, which had its IPO in April? Obviously, Coinbase having many different currencies in their basket, trading with them. So would the risk be lower to buy a stock that is trading with various currencies? I'm not against the Coinbase stock. I think it's a totally different vehicle and form of investing or speculating than buying the real thing, which first of all should be Bitcoin in your own hands. It's a different thing. You're buying a stock, you're speculating of a future business, while Bitcoin is this unbelievable new form of asset that cannot be controlled from a central place, and it's a pristine kind of collateral. It's a digital asset. You can be your own bank by just holding your own wallet. It's a totally different thing. You can certainly invest in Coinbase and make a good profit. I'm not against it, but you need to understand that this is a different thing than holding Bitcoin. Right. So you were actually you touched already on precious metals. So if one decides to go into precious metals, what are the differences between gold and silver? Palladium has been very, very popular in recent times. What are the differences?
Generally, precious metals have been money for the last 5,000 years. It's not easy to create them. It's actually quite a process to dig them out of the ground and then melt them down into coins or bars. And this hasn't changed even in the 21st century. And gold is obviously the safe haven number one. Everybody recognizes it. And I would say everybody should have some allocation into gold, physically preferably. And silver, on the other side, has also an industrial use case. So if we talk about electrification of societies, of electric cars, for example, if we talk about green energy, if we talk about battery metals that we will need, silver is an essential part of it, also for solar power. And most of the silver has been used over the last decades, so we don't have huge inventories, while most of the gold that has ever been mined sits either somewhere in Indian temples, or it is maybe in a vault in Switzerland, or maybe in a vault of a central bank. So, and also looking at the gold-silver ratio, the nature has given us a ratio of about 10 ounces of silver for 1 ounce of gold.
Mm-hmm.
The market currently trades at 66 ounces of silver for 1 ounce of gold. So you can make the case that silver is definitely undervalued. And on top of all that, there is a movement, it's called the silver squeeze. So lots of people all over the world basically came together, obviously encouraged by the Wall Street Reddit community, and they're buying the physical silver. Many dealers, many mints kind of like running out of the material at the moment. And if this movement continues, I think the outlook for silver is very promising. Palladium is a niche market. It's a small market that palladium is heavily used in the car industry. So there's a lot of industrial demand. And it's a tight market. And I think palladium is making new all-time highs by the day at the moment. Again, you cannot ramp up supply that easily. It takes up to 10 years to build a mine. It's also an interesting metal, but I wouldn't focus too much on it. I think gold and silver is a good way forward.
So a good point now to invest into silver rather than in gold?
Yeah, I personally would definitely put more money into silver than gold, definitely.
Run us through the logistics behind this. If I want to invest into gold or in silver, how do I do that? Do I buy physical gold and put it at home under my pillow? Do I leave it at the bank? Do I invest into a gold ETF? Do I invest into a gold mine? There are so many different options. Run us through it.
Right, no, you're absolutely right. There's lots of options, and it is very difficult to give a general answer, because it depends on your personal situation and structure. So if you're a private investor, I would definitely recommend that you figure out how to invest physically in precious metals, in gold and silver. If you are a big pension fund, it might make more sense to go through an ETF kind of structure. I would avoid any derivatives on gold, any options, any leverage trading, because you just introduce more risk to it. And the same also is true if you invest in mining stocks. They have a nice leverage on the underlying commodity, or in that case, the precious metals prices. However, if gold moves 10%, your mining stock will move maybe 30, 40%, but this happens to the upside as well, like to the downside. So if gold makes a little correction at some point, you will quickly find your position underwater, and then you're questioning whether this all makes sense. So I can tell you that the easiest way to play that is by simply holding some physical gold and some physical silver, and then you will always have money. You don't have to worry, and you can sit through those positions for years and years. I think that's the best recommendation I can give to small or to private investors.
Right, and then you'd suggest to have it in the bank and bear the storage costs as well, the quarterly storage costs,
yes.
Or having it at home and...
It depends about how much money we talk, obviously. I think a few $1,000s or euros you can without a problem hold at home, but I would say everything above $10,000 probably makes sense to look for a vaulting solution. Or even a custodian solution, yes.
You were already mentioning that the risk diversification is very important. So from your point of view, how should a portfolio at the moment look like, considering different asset classes?
Again, it's a very difficult question to answer in a general way. So it's always a very individual approach, because it depends on your psychology, on your risk aversity, also on the amount of money that you have. But I would suggest that everybody should have at least 10% in precious metals physically. I think that's at least a good number already to start with. And when it comes to Bitcoin and crypto, I mean, if you have no clue about it, I would say start small with 1 to maximum 5%. The truth, however, is that once you start investing into Bitcoin and you see these massive uptrends, those 5% quickly become maybe 25% or 50%. And of course, lots of early investors now hold 99% of their net worth in crypto or in Bitcoin or other coins. I think.
You mean because of the addiction of it?
No, because of the value appreciation.
The value going up, right.
I mean, if you bought Bitcoin at $100, now it's $56,000. Obviously, it will make a huge amount of your net worth nowadays.
So without investing additional sums, due to the positive development, anyway,
exactly.
The portfolio percentages will shift, right? That's
exactly.
what you're saying.
Exactly.
Understand.
So I think when it comes to cryptocurrencies, I just can always give the recommendation for beginners, start small. It's better to take $50 and try 5 times, do some errors with little money, figure out how this works, instead of immediately throwing $10,000 at it, or even more, and make it actually much more difficult and complicated, and also making it a head game, because then you're running behind the price and you're wondering, if I should have bought at that price and put all my money onto that, then da-da-da-da-da-da. So this is not helpful. You need to get your hands on it, do it small, take $50 and start. And then once you get more comfortable, you can increase the amount. I think that's the best advice I can give.
Okay. What about regulation? Do you think regulation would be the biggest threat against the current booms of cryptocurrencies? What can we learn from what recently happened in Turkey, where I think the cryptocurrencies or the Bitcoin was banned? If I'm not wrong, I think Nigeria also banned the Bitcoin as a currency. Is this a big threat to investors?
No, I don't think it's a real threat. What you can see now in Turkey, trading volume has exploded. So actually, that is actually one reason why I think it's not a real threat, because any central bank or any government that is kind of like a little bit more serious and aware, they will not do such a extreme step, because it will quickly show that the emperor doesn't have any clothes and that they cannot stop Bitcoin. So, and once that becomes clear with, imagine the Federal Reserve, everybody becomes aware they cannot stop Bitcoin, then it's basically game over. So they will not do this. And I think they're not after that. I think they understand and see the huge potential in this new sector. And I think they want to regulate it, they want to tax it, of course. And this will come step by step, it will come gradually. And I don't think it's a real threat to the sector. It's true that in many areas, many young crypto companies, they don't really know, are we allowed to do this? We have this great business idea, we have this concept, but we don't really know, can we do this? This is, I think, much more of a problem, and it kind of like stops the growth. And in this situation where we are now, any country desperately needs growth, and we need new sectors, we need creative people coming up with new ideas, creating new businesses, creating new jobs as well. So I think most of the governments will be more careful in understanding there is a need for a certain regulation, but they will not over-regulate it immediately.
Okay, interesting. Now, what happened in Turkey is that I believe that the crypto exchanges actually took the money of the investors and ran away. Now, that makes me ask you the question, what are the exchanges that I can actually trust? And which are the exchanges I need to be careful?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's also, again, a difficult answer, because there's hundreds, if not thousands, of exchanges, and now you have a lot of decentralized exchanges. So there is no CEO, there is no company anymore, there is no building where you can go to and figure out, is this exchange there? Is there any people working? It's all happening basically in cyberspace. I think one of the best answers is really start small, with small amounts until you figure it out. Does it work? Are they reliable? Can I trust these websites, these companies, these decentralized exchanges? And also always keep some of your cryptos in your own wallet, cold wallet, on your own ledger or whatever structure you have. I think holding everything on an exchange is is risky.
Right, and then, I mean, you're always speaking about Bitcoin, you're speaking a lot about Bitcoin. What about other currencies? If I want to start investing into it, you suggest to invest into Bitcoin. What about Ethereum? It's a very popular coin as well. What about all the alternative coins that are out there, the memes? How to go about it?
It's already a huge sector, and it's basically impossible to understand all these different coins and tokens and what they're all doing. I think what you want to understand is that Bitcoin basically has been laying out the foundation of trust. It's basically created a new environment. It's now more than 10 years proven to be working, and it's been a very stable, but nowadays kind of old school blockchain. Okay, so there's much more advanced technology out there. However, the network is very stable and is nicely distributed all over the world. You can also come up with certain arguments in terms of some miners have too much power already, some countries might have too much power already. But I think Bitcoin laid out this basic foundation of trust. And on top of this, so many new people, companies, and concepts have been built. And Ethereum certainly is super exciting. I think Ethereum might even grow bigger than Bitcoin at some point. It's already a larger network. You have already much more developers working on the Ethereum blockchain. You have all these smart contract tokens on top of it. So I think this is a super exciting coin if you want, but it has certainly different structures and codes in the behind or in the background, which doesn't make it as pristine as Bitcoin. However, my point of view is really, I love free markets. I believe that a free market is always coming up with the best solution. It might create some traction and craziness on the way, but at the end of the day, it will always come up with the best possible result. So I think you just want to be open-minded and let the market figure out. There is certainly super interesting new concepts around, and nobody really knows where this is going, but it is going at light speed, and you don't want to miss out. So you just want to get your hands on it, I think, is the most important takeaway.
So imagine I bought Bitcoin and it's now worth a lot more than what I've invested. Now I want to cash out. I need the money to buy a car or something else, whatever it is. How difficult or easy is it to convert Bitcoin into my fiat currency?
Well, according to Elon Musk, they will accept Bitcoin for payment, or already accepting it.
So don't want to buy a Tesla, maybe a different car.
And I think they will all follow at some point. So maybe there's no real need anymore in the future to cash out. I think also with prices sitting at 55 or 56,000 at the moment, it's very likely that we're going to see higher prices over the next few years. So that's also one of the hodler mentality in the sector. People don't want to actually sell their Bitcoin and give it away, so they think probably 3, 4, 5 times before they start spending it. Something else is with all these smaller altcoins, which like Doge, I mean, this coin at some point will see a huge correction of 70, 89%, who knows when. But you don't want to sit through something like this. No? But I don't think this is going to happen in Bitcoin anymore. You will see pullbacks, you might see huge volatility, but if you want to sell out, yeah, you can nowadays, you don't even have to leave the crypto exchanges or the crypto world anymore. You can just park your money in a stable coin like Tether, USDT, or in the Coinbase stable coin, which is USDC. And you can even get a nice interest payment up to, I think, between 5 and 9%, depending on which platform you're looking, which is unbelievable and much better in comparison to the legacy financial world. So leaving your money with the bank doesn't make sense anymore.
But back to the question, if I really want to cash out and I really want to have US dollars or euros or dirhams, whatever it is, how difficult is it? I mean, can I just convert it and then I pay a commission to the exchange, or how does it work?
Yeah, exactly. You can usually, I mean, again, there's a lot more and more shops and companies coming up who are accepting direct payments, but you can also cash out via your bank account, and then they charge you some form of commissions, and then you get your dollars. But for example, you need to be aware that Tether, the stablecoin USDT, is heavily used in Asia from businesses to move money around and make payments, because it's much easier, it's much faster than sending money via the classical old school banking system. It takes much more time, it's more expensive, there might be regulation issues, so they use USDT a lot.
How do you see the central banks currently experimenting with central bank digital currencies, these CBDCs? How do you see that development going at the moment?
Well, central banks certainly work heavily on that. I mean, the Chinese are leading at the moment. They introduce, the digital money issued by a central bank. This issues quite some question marks, and at the same time certainly will also bring some convenience to the market. But we don't know really where this all is going, but it will come. Mm-hmm. And it's not the same like Bitcoin. It's not a cryptocurrency. It's something given by the state to the people, basically. It might have certain conditions, like you're only allowed to spend that money for these kind of things, or this money is only valid until a certain date, or certain people can use it for certain ways. So it's gonna be very, very interesting how this all plays out. But you have to understand again that the idea behind Bitcoin, that's where Bitcoin is coming from, is the separation of money and state. That's the idea of Bitcoin, and it's happening at light speed. And again, of course, we have to also accept and remember that the separation of state and religion 500 years ago took quite some time, and it was not such an easy transition. So it's going to be very interesting how this all plays out. But I think it's obvious that the financial system, that the legacy financial system in which we have been operating for the last 50 years is basically not working anymore. Huge debts, debt levels, massive money printing, huge liabilities, and probably it's at the same time coming up this new crypto world. And it's probably a migration and transitioning process. And in the best case, this is going to happen smoothly. In the worst case, we have to see how it all plays out. But I'm actually very optimistic. I think there's so many new technologies, so many new things basically hitting all at the same time. So you have the crypto world, then you have the 5G world, even 6G coming around. You have AI, you have electrification, you have green energy, you have battery metals, you have so many things happening at the same time in terms of also technologies, new technologies. So I'm actually optimistic that somehow we can manage this transition and migration into a new world. Maybe you will just simply at some point have to write off all these issued euros and dollars at some point.
Very exciting. We'll see where the world is heading. Florian, I learned a lot. Thank you very much for being our guest today. Again, I think all our viewers today would love to see you live in person at the Future Blockchain Summit and FinTech Search, our big events coming up in October from the 17th to the 20th at the Dubai World Trade Center. We look forward to seeing you there as well. Florian, maybe something for our viewers, where can they find you in case online, in case they want to ask you questions or follow you?
Yes, they can come to my website, midastouch-consulting.com. We also have a free Telegram channel where we basically have constant conversations and discussions about the markets. Main focus is precious metals, commodities, and crypto, of course.
Thank you for being our guest today, and see you guys soon in October at our events at Dubai World Trade Center.
Thank you, Thomas. I look forward to seeing you there.